Okay, so hey, Rebecca. So we'll just start off with you giving kind of a background on yourself, like what's your major and why are you majoring in that?
Okay. Well, hi, my name is Rebecca Sims. I am a political science and media communications double major at Shenandoah University. Um, I started as a political science major and I picked up the second major in media and communications because I came to school for political science because I really liked learning about it. I had no clue what I wanted to do with it. And as I started taking a few MCOM classes, I kind of realized that I had a passion for helping other people learn about politics and learn about what's currently going on in the government. So I realized that a really good way to do that would be through media. And I know that a lot of people are kind of like, ah, political media is a little sketchy right now, but I think if you find the right sources, it's really not. And I want to kind of bring that trust back to political media.
That is so cool because well, that's exactly what I want to talk about today with like the climate is so like sketchy and scary. And obviously, like, I like how you
Yeah.
say I want to bring that trust back because there is so much division and distrust right now.
Yeah, we're really polarized on a lot of things, and I think people quickly jump to if a news source says something that they don't like. They're like, "Oh, it's wrong. Let me go find a different one that says what I want."
Mm.
So, trying to get away from that idea and more towards, yeah, okay, we're reporting for both sides. We're reporting for the medium. Um, and everyone can kind of read this and understand what we're saying and understand that it's factual, even if it's something they may not particularly like those statistics.
Mm. Mm. So, like, what are your favorite news sources and like how would you explain like right now obviously people associate Fox with being totally all the way right conservative like Trump like everything and then um I don't know CNN or all the other ones are like I feel like people feel like most of them are left leaning and people are lying. So like what's your take on that?
So I usually go for a lot of journalistic sources.
Okay.
If I'm going to be listening to something, it's NPR. Um,
I love
they do a
that.
phenomenal job.
Yes.
So I think if you're going to be watching a media source, that adds another layer to it because how information is delivered, especially when you can see someone's face or when you can tell their inflection, becomes a lot harder to be unbiased because we all have bias. So,
Hmm.
you see companies like Fox, who were one of the first people to actually call the election for Biden.
Hmm.
Uh, they do lean more conservative because they tend to hire people who uh, kind of go with that ideology. So a lot of how information is delivered has that bias lens towards it. It's what they choose to focus on. So for that stuff, I kind of think it's better to watch both sides.
Hmm.
'Cause I don't think watching one will get you to where you need to go.
Yeah. And like historically, like have we seen anything like the Trump presidency? Or do you feel like this, because this kind of obviously, since we're young to us, it seems like this is out of the ordinary. This is weird. This is new. But do you think that this has like something similar to this phenomenon has happened before?
Um, I I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
You know, thinking back, like looking way historically, like Andrew Jackson, um, a lot of people don't consider him necessarily a good person. He was that
Mhm.
kind of really in your face. I don't really know much about his political campaigning, but
Yeah.
he did stay in office for a fair amount of time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of similar to, Trump's approach of being more of a bully. I think it's Lyndon B. Johnson, that's carry a big stick. He would pull people in and give them a really stern talking to, like super close to intimidate them. So
Ooh.
it's not the first president we've seen that's uses that tactic, although it's certainly really weird to actually experience that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like it's only divided us more. Like people look up to Trump as kind of like this god-like persona and he can do no wrong, and now they kind of, it's almost, I feel like his followers are mimicking that like bully and toxicity and negativity. So it almost feels like we're on the brink of like a civil war, but I really don't know, like, is it going to be okay with Joe Biden now, or like what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah, I think that goes to a lot of how the Trump presidency, in my opinion, is different than a lot of other presidents. Um, because all of the presidents I mentioned, despite the fact that they were bullies, they did strongly advocate for unity within the state.
Mm.
And I think something you see with the Trump presidency is a lot of otherisms. So blaming things on Democrats or blaming them on immigrants. And that's his running platform, is blaming other people, which inherently causes more division and allows for people, they see this presidential figure, and it's a massive, it's not just the head of the government, the president is also the head of the state. So there is a lot of social influence that comes with being the president. So if you have someone who's constantly using otherisms, it kind of, for people who think that's more okay, encourages that behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you feel about how like the media has played? Because like part of me is kind of like he spews so much nonsense and so much like hate rhetoric and like toxicity that the media shouldn't be like covering that, but at the same time like he's the president, so obviously like the president is, anything the president does like is news. And I feel like because the media flocked to so much of his negativity before he became the president, that kind of like helped him win the election simply because of like name recognition.
Yeah, I think name recognition was definitely a big part of it. It wasn't a bad strategy,
Yeah.
being controversial to get your name in the news more. I think you're absolutely correct that that name recognition really helped him.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it as well, especially in the beginning of news media. I think it's the Washington Post that has an article about this, but a lot of journalists didn't really know how to cover Trump.
Yeah.
Because you're right, he's a president, but he's not really like any president we've seen before. He lies all of the time. That is an objective fact.
Yeah.
So as a journalist, how do you cover what he's saying without spreading more of those lies? And you have to take into account that it has to be very quick, especially for a lot of non-print sources where you don't even have time to write an article. You're on air, you're saying it as he comes out. So you have to fact check really, really quickly. And I think that's something we've seen towards the later end of his presidency, is this transition into, okay, we have to be very quick to fact check. And even if we're not fact checking immediately, we have to disclaim that this could be a false statement. And I think that's very helpful because it's not something they did in the beginning.
Yeah, it was just spewing all these like controversies and conspiracies and lies, and like it's total chaos and it's a circus.
Yeah, it's crazy. The average American does not know much about our government.
Yeah.
Which is very fair. But it's wild to hear what people believe, especially during those early years of what people thought was true because he said this. And I'm like, wait,
yeah,
that's nowhere close to accurate. I can give you articles and I can give you scholastic journals that disprove this completely. Why do you think this? And it's in the news.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I don't think it's intentional on the part of the news, and I definitely think they've moved to correct that.
Yeah.
Uh,
It took
but
some
that was a big impact.
time. And it's like you can't even blame like it's kind of scary how like uneducated like some Americans are, but at the same time it's like you can't even blame them because like he said it. So like and he's the president and like all the news people are covering it. So it's kind of like, "Oh, okay. Well, yeah, like that's like how he's saying now, I won the election." It's like,
Yeah, it's wild because you've never had to, as a citizen before, sit there and go, okay, this is my president, but I'm not going to trust what he says. I'm not going to take it at face value.
hmm,
And, you know, a lot of people who are distrusting would be like, oh, well, you should be doing that every way. No matter who it is, you should be discerning this. But you can't do that with everyone. You just, that's going to be way too much time. So
yeah.
a lot of the public will pick people who they choose to just take what they say at face value. And I feel like the president is definitely one of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Um let's see. It looks like we covered everything I want to cover. Kind of like to end off, like, what is like something do you think that a lot of us are ignoring in politics and government, and like why, or like how do you think we should go about like learning more about like the country we live in?
Yeah. So I think most people ignore the positives.
Mm,
Um, you know, it's hard to say, but there were some positives that came out of the Trump administration.
mm,
Um, there will be positives that come out of the Biden administration, even if people who are Republican are sad about this loss. Is focus on the positives.
yeah,
That's how you get through this, and it's how you heal a country that is massively divided right now. Is you don't focus on what's making you different, because we're all similar in some ways. You
yeah,
have to focus on that. But to like actually learning about this, ask a friend. Um,
yeah,
I've found that there's usually at least one person in a friend group that's really interested in this stuff, and they go out and they'll do research. Um, and if it's someone you trust, I think it's a wonderful idea to just be like, "Hey, explain this to me. I don't get it." You know, I'm that person for a lot of my friends. It was the election this fall. I got a lot of my friends together to go vote, and a lot of them were like, "Hey, I don't understand the difference between the candidates, between like not even just the presidential ones. You go down into like the Senate, the House, City Council. Can you explain these people to me? I don't want to make an uninformed decision, but also I don't have the time to go research this, but that's my major. That's stuff I do for fun." And a
yeah,
lot of people are like that. So find your friend, find your politics friend who you can just be like, "Hey, I need help with this."
yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. I appreciate you
Of
taking your
course.
time out. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.